We're with you to take a look at your ag commodity trade on a Thursday. Well, it is a full trading week. That means we actually get our export sales numbers out today like we normally do. So here to help us sort out all the data, we turn to Rich Nelson of Allendale Incorporated in McHenry, Illinois. He's with us right now. Good morning, Rich. How are you?
I'm doing fine today. How about you guys?
Doing all right. So finally, we're to the last day before the series of USDA reports coming out tomorrow. So we do have some export sales numbers to chew on for a little while today. And let's take a look at these numbers. And I want to get your thoughts on what they may or may not mean to the market here. So as we walk through them here, on the corn this past week, we had a total of 437,700 metric tons. Now that's amid a range of estimates by the trade of 200,000 to 700,000. On the soybeans, 616,400 tons. That compares to the range of estimates. The trade was looking for 300,000 to 850. So it was in there. Soy meal, 226,900 tons, kind of at the upper end of the range of estimates. Trade was looking for 75,000 to 250,000. Oddly enough, on soy oil, we have a rebate program going on here, negative 1,600 tons. The trade was looking for maybe 8,000 to 22,000, and they went the other direction. It was all net cancellations, apparently. Wheat, 71,500 tons, and the trade was looking for 200,000 to 450,000. So that was way under the trade estimates there. So your reaction here, Rich, on these early numbers?
You know, obviously the corn soybean numbers roughly within the trade discussion points here. As far as you mentioned, the net cancellation for the soybean oil was probably a little bit of a surprise here for the trade. I think that's worst of the season, obviously, with this net cancellation. Also, numbers on wheat maybe a little lower than we'd like to see as well. That was also the lowest one that we could point out for the season yet for wheat too.
That seems a little unusual. I know there's heavy demand for the meal. Why would the meal go one way and the oil the other? Can you explain that for our viewers and listeners?
You know, actually, I can't, because this meal here, this strong meal number, this actually double last week's number. So we kind of flip-flop. Last week had a more or less okay week for soybean oil, and we had a great week for meal. Excuse me, we had a poor week for meal and kind of had a very flip-flop nature as far as these go. So I don't have a great answer for this one by itself.
Now let's take a look at our grain sorghum and cotton and rice export sales this past week as well. Grain sorghum was up 170,700 tons this week. And the upland cotton, a combined total of marketing years of 367,400 running bales. That was 42% higher than what we had last week. And the rice, 1,100 tons for this time around. Any thoughts on any of those numbers here this morning, Rich?
And our discussion also goes with this rice number as well. This was the lowest so far the marketing year for the rice number as well. So a few of these commodities, not necessarily corn and soybeans, but a few of these ones are pointing out maybe a little weaker trade. They're weaker numbers we'd like to see, even considering that this was for a holiday week here.
And you know, the cotton could be very interesting as we get into the USDA reports tomorrow. They have had quite a run here lately, and there's going to be a lot of focus on that to see if indeed there will be enough incentive to maybe attract more cotton acres next year versus, or this current year, versus maybe some of the wheat acres that may be destroyed or may not make it through the growing season. There could even be a shift out of, well, for example, corn or maybe soybeans in the south, depending on what the markets do. So I just wanted to point that out. That was a strong export week once again on that cotton side there. A lot of concern, I understand, about the quality in Chinese cotton and also the production from India this past season. Rich, if you don't mind, we'll come back and we'll talk here about our livestock trade when we come back in just a moment. Well, we're back talking with Rich Nelson of Allendale Incorporated in McHenry, Illinois. One thing I neglected to mention here on our grain segment there, Rich, we did have a late note here of an overnight export sale. I understand from USDA it was soybeans. It had been kind of reported between corn and beans, but there was a little uncertainty there this morning. And from what I understand, it sounds like it was a soybean sale. Is that to unknown destinations or what?
This is for unknown. Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so about 132,000 tons off of the wire here this morning for an overnight sale. We'll see if that helps the soybean market. Okay, as we look at the livestock trade here this morning, yesterday it appeared that for the cash cattle market, things are kind of holding steady with prices at about where they were the day before. Kind of a light movement out there. It looks like 119 to 120 again in Kansas. It looks like in Nebraska we had some dress sales around 192 yesterday, about 4,000 head. And in Iowa, they were bringing 192 to 193 yesterday for the top end there. So it looks like it's basically about steady as she goes. What might happen in the livestock trade today?
You know, for Dave, probably looking for more of a mixed trade. We talked about this sharp drop in temperatures coming in into the weekend. That might be something to look at here. Also, people discussing NAFTA. Some of the Canadian authorities are suggesting that are taking more of a higher confidence view that the U.S. may pull out of NAFTA. And in terms of our commodity mix, this is more of a pork story, negative to pork here than anything else. But some people might suggest perhaps a little drag on cattle also here for the opening session here this morning.
And speaking of the pork, you had a story yesterday that you were talking about avian flu outbreak in Asia, and you said that could be correlated to the rally we've seen in pork.
It's certainly right. And in terms of this discussion right now, South Korea has been our major buyer of pork. And as a reminder, we've had actually some pretty good, in fact, 7 now good weeks as far as some higher than last year numbers. So good sales going on. This is a South Korea issue, and we're talking about, of course, this avian flu issue, which continues in South Korea. And on top of this, we have the Olympics set for February 9th. So we've got some buying going on, as well as some concerns about tight meat supplies in South Korea.
How are the hog weights?
As far as hog weights, still may be a question that we don't want to answer here right now. We're still running over 1% higher than last year. And in fact, this most recent Iowa-Minnesota report implied a small increase in this most recent week, which is something you don't usually see right in the heart of late December, early January.
And, excuse me, we're showing the pork cutout values here on the screen for our viewers at home yesterday, and it was a slight downward adjustment on the carcass values. But the bellies surged ahead again, $4.30 in that afternoon update, although the majority of the primal cuts were lower yesterday. How significant is that with that belly market?
I think that is something to point out because you're making a very good observation there that bellies, which are 15 to 17% of the total carcass itself, so not the major driver usually of these price moves. Until we see these main bulk cuts actually start moving the same, I wouldn't get too excited about the belly side right now.
The cash hog trade sharply higher yesterday on a live basis nationwide, and also on a carcass basis. We had the live basis sales $2.15 higher. Carcass basis up $1.87 yesterday, so big gains there. That should be supportive, you would think, to the futures on this Thursday, right?
Certainly right. This cash hog market has been on fire here now for 2 weeks in a row, so great gains there. The questions here are how will Packers react for next week's numbers, whether they'll rein in some Saturday kill numbers or not. So right now, great news. Let's see how long it lasts.
Good point. All right. Well, thank you, Rich. Good to talk with you again. Rich Nelson of Allendale Incorporated. He is based in McHenry, Illinois. So, Janet, we're setting the stage, about ready to get underway with our final full trading day before the report.
I was going to say our pre-report eve, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Thank you very much, Marlon.